Welcome, friends and family. Super excited to be here with you with this Motivational Monday teaching. We're continuing to come out of our book, Extreme Ownership, by Jacko and Leif. And today we're talking about the law of the chain leading up and down the chain of command. And what this looks like, guys, leading up and down the chain of command. Very interesting chapter. Leading up and down the chain of command means that you got to learn how to ask questions. And you got to learn how to ask the right questions. And you got to learn how to be proactive. So, an example, a lot of times in life, if we're not very proactive, maybe we don't take care of the work that's expected of us. And we can always say, well, we weren't told. Well, sometimes that statement comes back to say, well, you didn't ask. And so whose fault is that? Well, when you're leading up and down the chain, you've got to be willing to take responsibility for what you don't know, which means you got to ask questions. And when you have a good chain, see it's tight, all pieces are working together, it holds well when a chain's linked together. But when a chain gets out of link and the pressure comes, and if it's not linked well together, then just put a little pressure on it and it falls apart. So what happens is a little bit of pressure gets put on the chain and all of a sudden the chain unlocks and it's not linked together. So that's when things aren't going well. And why do we see chains not operating well? Why do teams, why do companies, why do families sometimes have a break in the chain and it just it gives when a little pressure's on it and all of a sudden you're putting pressure on it and it holds strong when things are running well, when questions are being asked, when things are being led down the chain correctly and led up the chain correctly. But when questions aren't being asked or expectations aren't being met, and it starts to say, well, you didn't tell me, well, you didn't ask, then there can be a tear in the chain when the pressure comes. And we don't want that. Guys, it's super important. Today I talked to a great leader in our community who was having a little bit of problem with their chain of command, and they're not complaining, they're not whiners, but there's an issue there, and the question came up to say, well, have you talked to your leader about this, to the upper level people? And the answer was no. Well, why not? Well, I'm not sure how it'll be received. I know that when somebody else asked questions, they were removed from working with the company. So I don't want that to happen. See, guys, there's an issue. When you're not willing or you don't feel comfortable asking your leadership questions, then there's going to be a tear in the chain. And unfortunately, it's going to give way. And that's the kind of pressures that cause things to break apart. So you got to be very comfortable. You got to be very comfortable. If you have questions, if you're not clear on the mission, on the purpose, to be able to ask those that are above you. And also when you're leading down the chain, you got to be very clear to make sure that you instruct properly, that you give the proper mission. And then whatever that mission is, that you state it clearly as it goes down the chain. And then also that you help them understand the reason why. Why are we doing what we're doing? What's the purpose behind the mission? Why are we doing that? And as a leader, sometimes that's hard. We don't want to take time. We just want to delegate it, push it on to the next person, and not take the time to explain the mission properly, to ask questions, to make sure that they understood clearly what that mission is, and then explain to them, take a little time to explain the why. And when we do that well, then the chain stays tight, right? It's strong, it's linked together. They understand the mission, they understand the purpose. That ain't going nowhere. But then when you don't explain the mission and you don't explain the why behind it, then all of a sudden it can get linked, it can get broken. So somebody gets frustrated, they don't understand why they're telling us to do this. It just seems like more work. Why are they putting more work on us all the time, more work? And then boom, the chain breaks and things don't get done and things fall apart. That's what happens when we're not leading down the chain of command properly. And as a leader, it takes time, it takes patience. Sometimes leaders, I know that can be our hardest thing, is to actually take time to explain the mission properly. and then ask enough questions to make sure they understood clearly and thoroughly the mission, and then go ahead and share in the heart. One thing we've learned from extreme ownership as we study through this is that if you really want it to be their mission, and how do you make it their mission? By giving them the basics, what you're looking for, and then allowing them to give you the best way to go about that. And then when they own it and they understand the why, man, that chain's going to be tight. It ain't going to break. It's going to be linked together well, and it's going to be strong, and it's going to hold tight. It's going to stand the test of time, and the mission's going to be accomplished, and it's going to be accomplished well. But if you shortcut any of that, that's when you end up with trouble, and that's when the chain breaks. So guys, that's ours today. Think about this, how it can apply to your life. Could it apply in your family? Are there issues sometimes when, mom and dad ain't getting along well? Then there's a breakdown in the chain of command, and things aren't being understood properly, and it starts to get a little crazy being in that family, right? Or how about in your business or in your church, when things aren't being explained correctly, when things are just being done fast and sloppy, nobody has ownership, it's everybody else's fault for everything that's going wrong. Guess what? That chain ain't going to last. You're going to be doing a lot of hiring and a lot of bringing on new people because there's a kink in the tear in that chain. It's not tight. So what do we got to do? We've got to make sure that everybody's linking up, that everybody's on the same page, that we're being very clear about our vision, very clear about our mission, very clear about our purpose, so that chain links tight. And whose responsibility is that? No, it's not theirs. It's mine. It's my responsibility. I got to own that. If I'm having a trouble with the higher ups, then I've got to be person enough to go explain to them where the issue is and be okay with the answer of, well, we can't do anything about that right now, or we just ain't got the finances. But to harbor it and not go talk about it, that's when issues come. And vice versa. If I'm leading down the chain, then I need to be very clear on the vision, very clear on the mission, very clear on the why, the purpose behind it. And when we do those things well, guys, things are going to work. When we're not, it's not going to work. And who has to take responsibility when it's not working? I do. I do. And you do too. As a leader of your house, as a leader in your community, as a leader in your work spot, that's our responsibility. So hope this had some value to you. I know KC did a phenomenal job of sharing this today. I probably did about half the job he did. Thank you all very much. Hope you have a great week. Thank you.